just this past week, actually last Sunday, the second longest strike in Hollywood history came to a stop. So it was after 146 days of labor stoppage. So the writer's strike has ended. And that brings me to my next piece of news that kind of ties right into this. A new X-Men movie is in the early stages of development at Marvel Studios. All right. Welcome to another episode of Only Comics. I'm Mike. This is Adrian.
Good morning.
How we doing today?
We're doing good, man.
We're here. Another week. Episode 24. We've been doing this for 24 weeks, Adrian.
Wow.
Feels like
That's
we just
nice.
started.
That's nice, right?
Feel like we just started yesterday. And now this week, well, just like every week on Only Comics, we are here to discuss comics and Only Comics and sometimes some other stuff.
Okay.
Sometimes, we're going to take a ride on the multiverse of the comic book world. And, Adrian, we fight opinions. We fight idiots. We fight stupidity. One of these days, we're going to fight a director. I'm going to predict,
Right.
Like, legit. We should have one here. We can fight him right here in this room.
Or at least a fathead or something.
Yeah,
or a
yeah.
punching doll or something like that. Not literally, dropping whatever,
we don't condone
whoever is
violence.
in here.
Yeah. But we're going to kick off this week like we do every single week with our Newsflash Buddy segment. This is where we go through comic news for the past week, and we pick out what we call here in Only Comics a buster. And a buster, Adrian, is someone who's just he's on the other side of this.
Right.
We're not on the same page. We're not vibing. They did something probably offensive. So we're going to pick that individual. And we also have this week, we're doing a deep dive, Adrian. We've been known for our deep dives here on Only Comics.
Yep.
And we're doing a deep dive into a movie that we both don't agree on.
Right.
The Batman. Right. Yep. We're wrapping up what we had turned Batman Day into Batman Month here, and actually we're in October and we're still talking about Batman.
We're still talking about Batman and the Flash.
And the Flash, yeah. We actually have a deep dive into the Flash now. And then we have the finale of our King of the Comics tournament.
Yep.
Phoenix versus Doctor Strange. So we're going to discuss that, and then we have your segment, Hidden Gem. You got something cool planned there, so I won't spoil that. But let's get right into the news this week. We're starting off with something good, Adrian. Something that we've been saying here on Only Comics. Pay the people, right? We've been saying that. Why we've been saying that? We've been saying that because the writers in Hollywood were on strike. The directors were on strike. So, and it really boiled down to the fact that the writers and directors were not being paid on streaming the way they were being paid on television shows and whatnot. And then at some point, the writers said, "Screw y'all, we're going on strike until we get our money." They wanted some they wanted some protection built in for studios using AI to basically replace them. Right. So we've talked about AI a little bit here on this show. And Adrian, I was talking to this guy who he was an extra in a couple of movies. He was extra in a Wonder Woman movie. And he was telling me that even him as an extra, they still scanned his body, right? And then so they bring in, like, let's say a dozen extras, and they scan them all. And then when you see these scenes, like he was telling me about a mall scene where there's people everywhere, they only had like 10 or 12 extras, and then they scan them and just duplicate them and change. Like, they could scan you, throw you on the computer, change your clothes, and throw you in the scene like you're another person.
Right. So they'll see, like, the back of my head. They won't see multiple faces, but they'll see, my physical form and doing multiple things at the same time. Wow.
Yep. Different outfits. So you may walk by yourself in the movie.
Right.
So granted, the studios, there were no rules against what they could do with AI because AI was so new. So how does that affect us here at Only Comics? Well, when there's a strike, it means nobody's working, right? It means they're not writing movies. It means that they're not creating movies. So just this past week, actually last Sunday, the second longest strike in Hollywood history came to a stop. So it was after 146 days of labor stoppage. So the writer's strike has ended. The director's strike, or the actor's strike, I'm sorry, has not ended yet. But with the writer's strike ending, what that means is they can start working on some of these projects that have been put on pause. They didn't release all the details, but basically it was really, I guess, obviously what the writers were looking for. There are now protections in place against AI. Essentially, writers can use AI as they, feel they need, but studios cannot use AI to replace them. Cool. And they basically said that from a financial standpoint, they're being taken care of in every way that they should. Like I said, the details have not been released, but I'm happy for them. Right. It's awesome. And, from a selfish fan standpoint, that means we can get back on track with some of these movies, because like you were mentioning, we were talking before we got on there, it's like, dude, there's nothing to watch right now. Right. I mean, we went on a run. We were, reviewing movies like every week here. Right. Dude, I can't remember the last time we went out to watch something to review.
Well, I mean, there's old stuff that we can go back into, but, with a little digging. But, it was exciting, like over the summer, to be able to go and review, a few movies. I'm excited, too, about this, that the writers are coming back, because at the very least, some scripts can start getting in place. Some movies can start, getting written, and then we can fill in the bodies later, just like, with AI, once they scan you, they put your body wherever. Right. So the writers can at least
write Nicolas Cage about that.
Right. So the writers can at least, get the storylines all set. And then once the thing gets resolved with the actors, they can then come in and then fill those roles with the writing that has been done in the background. All good news.
Yep, absolutely. And that brings me to my next piece of news that kind of ties right into this. A new X-Men movie is in the early stages of development at Marvel Studios. This, I think, is great news because we're pretty honest here. We've been accused of telling the truth at times. And the MCU right now, the current phases have been pretty shitty. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah, do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, shitty works.
Shitty, right? Of the movies that they've released, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Spider-Man No Way Home are the only two that are actually worth a shit. Be honest, right? I mean, Wakanda Forever, it's okay. I don't know.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Okay.
It wasn't.
That was a huge disappointment to me. But it is what it is. So let's move on.
Right. So hearing that they're starting the early stages of development on a X-Men movie, I think that's great news. Yeah. X-Men. I mean, I know I'm a huge X-Men fan. I'm a pretty big X-Men fan. And the Fox movies, they kind of have a special place for me. They were as good as they could have been at the time. Right. But seeing, with the technology that we have now and what we've seen in the MCU as far as like bringing comic accurate costumes, characters, storylines to screen, I'd love to see the X-Men get that same attention.
Right. I'm on the fence about it. This is great news that they're coming out with a new X-Men movie, or the movie has begun to be in development. I'm a little concerned because I haven't had a good enough experience. Unlike the Avengers or the Guardian of the Galaxies, I haven't had a good enough experience across the X-Men properties in order to be like, I'm really excited for this new movie to come out. They just seem to be kind of, messing it up, just kind of like they did with the Fantastic Four. So I'm lukewarm about the movie actually coming out. I do hope they, knock my socks off, but I just don't have enough good experience with their properties. As them being good movies to me, to be overly excited about this next thing.
Yeah, and the part where I'm nervous is not where you are. It's more, will the MCU fumble this bag this time because of their recent history? Right. It's like if it was, peak MCU, Endgame, Infinity War time, I'd probably feel really good about it. But with their track record as of late, I'm a little hesitant. Right. Now, we're looking at, we're probably getting way ahead of ourselves. This movie probably won't be released until after Secret Wars, which is right now May of 27. So we're talking 28. So we're talking at least 4 years before we see it. Right. So, and also, will we see it?
Right. That's the other thing. Why even release this information? Right. It's like you had something that you had to drop as soon as the Writers Guild was over, just to stay relevant in the business,
Yep.
and you drop this news. Why even bother dropping this news?
Right.
I mean, there's so many other things that you could be working on, or dropping something that's a little bit more developed. That's going to have a closer release date. The X-Men is not one of those things that you should have just haphazardly just thrown out there. So I'm a little disappointed in that. But they got 4 years to figure it out.
Yeah, true. I thought you were going to hit him with, listen, Buster, like, hey, Buster.
Hey, Buster.
But, it wasn't in this article that I sent you, Adrian, but I read somewhere else that the rumor right now is that Wolverine will not be part of the original X-Men crew. Now, that's just another rumor from one of those, one of those trusted sources.
Right.
Now, let's just, we have fun here. Let's assume that that's the truth, right? Let's assume Wolverine's not going to be part of this first X-Men incarnation in the MCU. Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
It depends on when they drop. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Again, I've always been a champion of, let's let some of these other characters, bubble up.
Yeah.
We have a character later on that we're going to discuss that has really gotten overshadowed and just buried in the comic book world. So I'm okay with a Wolverine not being on the scene.
Really?
Bring out some of the younger people, just like the Titans right now is kind of taking over the Justice League.
Yeah.
Is replacing the Justice League. We need to have a new era of mutants or X-Men come in and do the same for this Charles Xavier era team of superheroes. So I'm cool with it.
You are you a fan, like, in general? Forget about MCU and giving new actors a chance, but I mean there's comic stories with X-Men that don't include Wolverine.
Sure.
There's series there are even some movies like the whole X-Men First Class. There was no Wolverine. Are you a fan of the the non-Wolverine project? Because I'm like, I hear this, but I go, really, we're gonna wait all this time to see the X-Men on live screen, on live action again, or the X-Men brought into the MCU, and we're not gonna include Wolverine? It just seems like it pisses me off, honestly. Are you a fan of those stories without Wolverine?
Again, depending on when they launch this thing and how they launch this thing. I'm okay with Wolverine not being there. However, I do agree it's kind of, I won't say suspect, but it's weird.
Yeah.
It's almost like,
he's about to say they're a little sus right now.
It's almost like when you don't like the Batman shows or the comics with the family in it.
Right.
You like to see Batman doing local stuff. This is kind of the same thing. Is there an X-Men without the Wolverine? Kind of not.
Yeah.
Almost like there's no Justice League without a Batman or Superman.
Right.
I matter of fact, I saw a comic the other day, a picture of an art piece. It was Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batgirl, like just going at something.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and it's like, what's wrong with this picture?
Right.
Batgirl shouldn't be in this picture with these two.
Yep.
It should have been Batman or Green Lantern or somebody, but not Batgirl. So it's kind of like that feeling where Wolverine, he should be there, but I'm okay. At least initially. You don't have to bring him out. But this is also a great opportunity for them to cast somebody else younger as the Wolverine. They got 3 or 4, maybe 5 years to develop a character. They got years to develop stories. I mean, this is really an opportunity to do a true reboot and bring back all these characters the way they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, but if it's my vote, I go, let's include them, please, for the love of God. Because I look at, like you just said, it's like, oh, we're going to do Justice League, but we're going to have Superman's dog. We'll have Wonder Man in there instead of Wonder Woman, and then we'll have Batman, but it will be James Gordon playing. But why?
Right. Yeah.
I
got you.
So I'm like, no, let's. So anyway, but good news that they're at least working on that because I'd love to see them on screen done properly.
I actually don't think they'll do it though. I think they're just pissing out information to kind of like upset the fan base. Again, staying relevant.
Yeah.
Let's give them some talking bites. We have nothing else for them to talk about, so let's pull back one of the most famous characters out of this group. just to kind of rile the fan base up.
Yeah. Well, how about why don't we tell them then? All right. So if we're gonna pick five X-Men that have to be in this film, okay? Right. If it's up to us, do we agree Wolverine's got to be in this film?
Wolverine.
Okay. Professor X, right?
Professor X. Yep.
Would you say Cyclops?
Definitely.
We have to do more than 5. We're gonna do 10.
Okay.
All right. Cyclops.
Yep.
Storm.
Storm.
Beast.
Yep.
Rogue.
Yep.
Jubilee.
Nope.
No. Ooh.
Nah. She's
okay.
Not that important. Not that important.
All right.
I mean, Rogue is even. I would put her like 10. There's a couple other people I would
10.
put. Like I would put Colossus there.
Colossus.
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler.
Who else we got?
We got 2 more. Emma Frost. I know she's in and out. Sometimes she's X-Men. Sometimes she's not.
Right. But no, the core X-Men. Those guys. Jubilee's a stretch though.
Okay. Banshee. That's old school.
Yeah, that's old school. That's Scottish. Oh, again, he's like over there.
Yeah.
A strong character.
How do we forget Jean?
Oh yeah, Jean.
Duh.
Duh.
All right, that's Dark 9. Phoenix, we need one
9.
more, Adrian. Who is it?
I mean, if you're gonna throw Jubilee in there, you might as well throw Gambit in there.
Gambit.
Right.
There we go.
Yep. So,
that's the core group right there.
Yep.
So we said it. I'll see if I remember them. Wolverine, Cyclops, Professor X, Jean Grey, Beast, Nightcrawler, Gambit,
Colossus,
Rogue,
Jubilee.
There you have it. That's the lineup right there.
Yep.
Top 10 you need for X-Men. All right, moving on. James Cameron. Jimmy over here.
Jimmy boy.
Jimmy, he's talking. And he's saying some stuff that he's not alone in these shots that, it's funny. The MCU has been around, 10, 15 years now? 08, I think, first Iron Man movie. Okay. And most successful movie franchise ever, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you add up all the billions that they've sold at the box, nothing even comes close. Mm-hmm. Biggest cinematic universe ever as far as the amount of movies, shows, and everything that ties into it. As much as we give parts of it shit, I mean, the MCU is one of the most impressive things in Hollywood, in my opinion.
When did it start? What year?
08.
2008.
Yep.
Okay. Well, now, you can't forget my boy. Oh, well, so there's the MCU, and then there's the Marvel presence in movies, which goes back decades, of course.
Okay.
And I would argue that they should at least take it back to Snipes' Blade.
Okay.
I'm just saying. That's just me.
All right. Well, hey, if you're saying, actually, he doesn't say the MCU. He says a Marvel Universe film. So to your point, we can go back to 98.
Okay.
98, right? So it's, I think, one of the most impressive things that any studio's done in Hollywood, how they've tied it all together. No, it hasn't been perfect, and we do critique it because they've set such a high standard for themselves, right?
Correct.
But there's been a handful of directors that have taken shots at the MCU.
Not high standards according to Cameron, but anyway.
But they take their shots, man. We could call them haters, probably. Right. I mean, I think they would definitely classify as haters. Martin Scorsese's one, who I love as a director.
Right.
I mean, Wolf of Wall Street's one of my favorite movies of all. I mean, I could list a million. Goodfellas, Casino. Right. I love Scorsese films.
Right.
But I don't like his take on the MCU. Mm-hmm. Now, James Cameron's joining the crew. Mm-hmm. He says that when I think of films that have epic events in them, like let's say a Marvel Universe where whole cities get destroyed and so on, they don't feel epic to me.
Right.
What say you, Adrian, on Jimmy over here?
Jimmy. So, love James Cameron movies.
Yeah.
Been a big fan pretty much all my, movie going life. Mm-hmm. He's done some exciting things, but Jimmy, every movie isn't somebody sitting on a sinking boat with their hands flapping in the wind. Jimmy, doesn't work that way. Nope. There are luxury cars. Then there's sports cars. James Cameron is a luxury car. MCU is a sports car.
Okay.
Stay in your own lane.
Right.
Stay in your own lane, Jimmy. We don't need your critique. You are Tom's. So, we respect what you do. Why don't you show respect to the other directors for what they do? Right. You don't have to cross-pollinate. We don't have to, if you're feeling some kind of way because you're kind of like fading out, cool. You know, we'll get you a nice, I don't know, wheelchair or some shit.
We'll get him the bike that Ali Salim's
right.
riding off.
Yeah, give him the bike that Ali Salim is riding on. Whatever, dude. But just don't compromise what's going on in something that has absolutely nothing to do with the type of films that you do very well.
Yeah.
But not your style. Stay over there.
Yes. So we're going to play a little game here, Adrian. We're going to play a game. We're going to add up the epic films, okay? So
Epic films.
my man James Cameron, epic films. Now, he's got some early films like Xenogenesis and Piranha 2. I've never seen those. We'll start with the Terminator,
Wow.
okay?
I never heard those.
Yeah. So his first two films, well, I'll run through he has the Terminator.
Yep.
He has Aliens.
Yep.
The Abyss.
Yep.
Terminator 2.
Yep.
Okay. Just out of those four right there, I'm going to say Terminator 2 is an epic film.
Right.
Epic, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say any of the others? The Abyss, Aliens, the first Terminator?
Epic. I mean, epic, no, but
No.
I mean,
Good movie.
good films.
Great films.
I mean, all those four you listed, I like.
Yes, but we're saying epic is like, cinematic masterpiece. Like,
Right. Like The Matrix. That was epic.
I would say Terminator 2 was epic.
Right.
I would say the action at the time and the story, the whole deal.
Right. For the time.
For the time. All right, so he's got one.
Yep.
We're going to add up. He's got one. True Lies, not so epic.
Not so epic.
Not bad movie.
Entertaining, but not epic.
The Titanic. I would say that I'd argue that's epic.
I agree.
The scale of it. Yeah. I mean, the movie was like, I think 2 days long. You had to go back to watch it. It was like, I know there was an intermission. I know that.
Costume changes.
Exactly. But it was epic. I mean, and just the attention to detail, the ship, the whole deal.
Yep.
The first Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
Epic.
Yeah. Epic. I would say epic.
I'd say epic.
Yep.
And then that was 2009, so that was right after the MCU got going, right? Mm-hmm. And then James Cameron was so busy watching all these MCU films, he didn't put out another movie until 2022.
Right.
Avatar: The Way of the Water. Mm-hmm. Would you consider this film epic?
I'm gonna say it's probably. Let me say I gave Flash a 0. I would say Avatar 2 was probably a 2.5.
A 2.
Yeah.
Hold on. The golden question, Adrian. Everyone's going to love this. Is Black Adam better than Avatar 2?
Mike, I never thought I'd hear myself saying this. Yes to that question.
Okay.
Black Adam is better than Avatar 2, but I would actually watch The Flash before I watch Avatar 2.
Wow.
Because it was so disappointing. It wasn't. The Flash was just a shit movie.
Yes.
Right? It wasn't good as the Flash movie. Avatar 2 was disappointing, which is a different category for me. I had no expectation of the Flash. I had a lot of expectation for Avatar 2, and it didn't do it at all. So no, I don't have to be locked up in prison to make a choice on this one. I would watch the Flash.
All right, there you have it. Black Adam's better than Avatar 2. So Avatar 2 not epic. So James Cameron, 3 epic films.
Right.
And this is, I'm not discrediting anything else. He has some other amazing, like the first Terminator. I actually love that movie.
Oh yeah.
It feels more of like a horror type movie than action. Aliens. So anyways, Titanic, first Avatar, Terminator 2, his epic film. So you got 3, bro. He's got like 9 Avatar movies coming up in the queue for some reason. Like, who's asking for these?
Right.
Who's out there like, we need more Avatar? I was good after the first one was good.
Right.
But I didn't need any more.
I mean, besides the, how long it's taking him to put them out. I mean, we'll all be dead. I don't know what kind of elixir he's drinking.
Exactly.
But we'll all be dead before the next one comes out.
100%. All right, so he's got 3. We're going to go through the MCU real quick. All right, so first phase, Adrian. Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, First Avengers, and The Avengers. Mm-hmm. The Avengers was epic, the first one.
Yep.
All right, would you say any of these other ones are epic? This is epic.
I wouldn't say epic.
Okay.
Definitely entertaining.
Yeah.
Captain America, Iron Man 1. I like those. The Hulk, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Iron Man, the first Iron Man, you can almost argue because of its impact, but we're not going to.
Right.
We'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Jimmy. So the Avengers, we agree from Phase 1, that's an epic movie. I mean, first time characters like that from 4 other popular movies were brought in together in one. And I think even at the time, everyone was concerned about how well they'd balance, each character. And everyone got their shine in that movie. So Avengers 1. All right, Phase 2, Iron Man 3, Christmas movie. Thor, Dark World, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Guardians, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. There's some really good movies in here. I don't see anything epic. Do you? Nope. So move on. Phase 3, Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Endgame, Far From Home. All right. I'm going to say Endgame is epic.
Okay.
Infinity War is epic.
Okay.
I have some up, but I'll give you any ones you throw in there. Would you throw Black Panther in there? The first one?
I wouldn't call it epic.
Okay.
Definitely top tier, but not epic.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go with those.
What about I'd argue Civil War.
Civil War. I'm on the fence on that one, but
okay.
let's tip it over. Let's say epic. 3 out of that phase.
So we got 3 there.
Yep.
Plus the Avengers is 4.
Yep.
My man Cameron had 3.
Mm-hmm.
We're already 1 above. Okay. And now this is the multiverse saga. Black Widow. Definitely not epic.
All right.
Shang-Chi, nope. Eternals, nope.
No.
Spider-Man, No Way Home. Bringing back 3,
Very good, but not epic.
You wouldn't say epic.
I
would
not say epic.
I would say, but yeah, all right. Maybe we'll reserve the coin for that, maybe.
Yep.
You know what? All right, screw it. You call it in the air.
Tails.
I didn't flip it. See, I didn't flip it. It's Tails. Damn it. All right. Doctor Strange, nope. Thor, Love and Thunder,
no.
No. Wakanda Forever, no.
No.
Okay. And then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumanium, nope. Guardians 3, would you call that epic? I wouldn't. I don't know. The Marvels we haven't seen yet, and that's it. So we have 4-3.
Mm-hmm.
James Cameron, 3 epic films. Marvel has 4.
4.
Right? Yeah. Marvel won.
Even if Marvel hadn't won,
yep.
even if Marvel had no epic movies, it's still unfair for him to critique a genre that he has no experience directing, unless he's put something out like Piranha 2 that I didn't know about that either. So, but you're just kind of shitting on somebody else's. It's like, I got a big house, you got a big house. Well, I'm gonna shit on your house because yours is made out of metal or some shit.
Right.
And it's like, come on, just leave it alone, dude.
Yeah.
There was no reason for you to be in the news this week.
Nope.
At all.
Not at all, dude. Not at all. And we're pretty strict here. Like I said, I could argue Black Panther in there. I could even, if we're talking Terminator 2 level of impact.
Right.
But anyway, I would say Marvel definitely winning that argument. But also like epic moments.
Right.
We've seen some really epic moments in some of these,
non-epic movies.
Exactly. Think about even just like the first Iron Man.
Right.
There's some epic moments in that. You go back to, we talked about Winter Soldier.
Right.
Some of those scenes, like the Cap, Winter Soldier fight. There's so much good. But to your point, like, if it's not your cup of tea, dude, that's fine.
Right.
But why shit on it?
Right.
Because the weight that you bring, you're James Cameron.
Exactly. Exactly. How many, I'm sure you're not going to throw off your age group that hasn't already, adopted comic books into their lives. You're not going to change anything like that. Mm-hmm. But it's just not painful. It's just upsetting for people that enjoy comics, for somebody on the outside to, to just peer through the window and say, well, what you're doing is shit. Mm-hmm. So just, I don't even want to talk about this dude anymore.
Newsflash, buddy. They got more epic films than you. All right, next up. Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck can now re-enter the DCU. So,
is this real?
I read in a few spots. Now it's a rumor, but the rumor is that James Gunn. We know that he's now co-CEO of the DCU. They fired Henry Cavill. They fired Ben Affleck. They're going to keep Gal Gadot for Wonder Woman for some reason.
I thought that was squashed too.
Oh, is that squashed now too? Okay. You might be right. That's been up. And there was one piece of news came out early on where they were to keep her, but you're right. I think in this one it does say that she's not, but who the hell knows?
Right.
But the point now that the thing that they're coming out now saying is that he is going to recast some of these individuals as different roles in the DCU, which why? What, like Ben Affleck's going to play who? The Riddler? Like, like why?
Besides that, what makes you think that I'm going to give you control over my life after you just shit on me?
Right.
It's like, why would I want to work for a company that went out of their way to not just fire me, but destroy my reputation, all this other kind of stuff?
Right.
Why would I go back to work for you at all? I don't care what you're offering.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming somebody at Ben Affleck's level is not gonna, just accept that. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But we'll see. That tells his level of character too. But
right.
That's just a dick move.
It's just, why bother, dude? You got rid of them. You want to recast your whole new storyline and your vision, but you're like, oh, I can use them for another role.
Right.
What, like, is Ben Affleck going to be Superman and Henry Cavill's going to be Flash this time? Like, why? Or cast them as some obscure. I mean, they're big names, so you can't just cast them as like an extra or a sidekick.
Right.
Ben Affleck's not going to be Jason Todd.
Right. I don't know. It just feels like something that they're just putting out just to piss people off, just to stay relevant.
Yep.
Because there's not really. It's almost like they just sat on the couch during this strike and not had anything planned once the strike ended, and so now they're just throwing a bunch of just.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's our news this week, Adrian. Who is our buster? I mean, I think it's pretty simple, but
all right.
Who would you say?
Jimmy
Cameron. Jimmy Cam, you are our buster this week. So, like I said earlier, newsflash, buddy, they got more epic films than you. So, and that's kind of the rule, right? Like, if I'm bigger than you, if I beat you, you can't talk shit. Like, if you're running your mouth, Adrian, we start playing basketball and you win or whoever wins, the other one has to shut up.
Right.
I can't go, I'm better than you. You beat me. It's like, dude, shut up.
Well, talking trash and shitting on somebody is two different things.
True.
And Cameron's not talking trash. He's shitting on an entire category of.
Maybe he's mad because he hasn't directed one.
I think he secretly wants to.
A little jealousy, maybe?
Maybe. I think so.
Maybe.
I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
we'll see. But in the meantime, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. There you have it. All right. Next up, we have your segment, Adrian. Hidden Gem.
Hidden Gems.
So the Hidden Gem, and it's we had Blade last week, right? So it's not like it's a crazy obscure that character nobody's heard of all the time. It can be. But Hidden Gem is kind of like one that's really not been in the limelight for a while, right? It could be. A lot of times you pick people that are characters that we've not seen in live action yet, or maybe characters that aren't as popular now as they were maybe 5-10 years ago. I mean, we've had Constantine on here. We've had Captain Marvel's Binary. We've had Nova, So this week, I know you got something special. This is kind of, I'd say, more of an obscure one that not a lot of. I don't think everyone's going to recognize this one.
Okay.
There's one you had Nova, and then you had the first guy, the Guardian.
Yep.
That was one where I was surprised I even knew who he was. But then Blade, Constantine, I knew this one. I've heard the name, but I don't know a lot about this one.
Right.
So, who is our hidden gem this week, Adrian?
All right. So this week, this character. I was first introduced to this character when I first started looking at comics, only because I'm flipping through like the little turnstile in the drugstore. You see the comics book, and the costume was very flashy, very attention grabbing. So I picked this comic book up and I started reading it, and it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool character, lot of power, and just over the years, I mean, he just nobody really pushed him. He was sidelined for a while, actually.
Yeah.
And then they tried to bring him out, and they come out with something that just didn't even make sense, and then he goes back underground again. So the character, the hidden gem for this week is Firestorm.
Okay.
This is a DC character. Extremely powerful. As a matter of fact, he's probably more powerful than the entire Justice League, not the entire Justice League, but what we understand as the Justice League. So Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, blah, blah, blah. Because he has the Firestorm is a this kid, Ronnie Raymond. He was fused with this teacher, Martin Stein, during a nuclear accident. So the teenager, Ronnie Raymond, he has the body and he's in control. But this professor, Stein, is in the background, sort of like a passenger. He sees everything that Firestorm sees. He kind of guides him, things like that in the background. So they're literally like a double character inhabiting one body when they come together. Their powers, they can fly, super strength, super senses, able to project energy blasts, speed. Some have, he's had a tumultuous kind of, history in the comics. So sometimes his powers change. He could pretty much teleport, go through, space, time, all this stuff. But the biggest power he has is the ability to manipulate matter. Unlike Green Lantern, who can create things, temporary things, with his ring, Firestorm, once he changes something, like, for example, if he decides to change lead into gold, it stays that way until he decides to change it back.
Got it.
So he's that level. Can he be Superman? Absolutely. Not strength to strength, because he can literally turn the air molecules in Superman's lungs to kryptonite. He can turn his suit into kryptonite.
Yeah.
He can do anything. Some say he could do, his power of manipulation is more or less tuned to inorganic matter, even though it has been said that he could do organic stuff.
Yeah.
Some said, well, if he does that, there's a lot of feedback, it's painful, so on and so forth. Others say, he can do it with more practice, things like that. But if that's the case, then he could literally turn people to glass, and they're going to stay that way.
Wow.
Period. So it's not a temporary change. They said that, even over time, I don't know if you know who Dr. Manhattan is, but Dr. Manhattan is like the ultimate matter manipulator. Over time, he could have that level of godlike power.
Wow.
So this character is no joke. It's just that, when you put him up against and he has been part of the Justice League. But you would see him in like the CWs, like the Flash and the Green Arrow.
He was in some live action stuff.
Right? Yeah. There was a cartoon animated version of it, of him. But he has really just been, pushed to the sideline. So that's it. That's him.
So I didn't know any of that. I always thought he was like a Human Torch type or Ghost Rider type because of the flaming hair. I thought he was just like a fire guy. And the name Firestorm.
Right.
But I had no idea of all the other stuff.
Well, the fire isn't flame. The fire is nuclear.
Okay.
So even though he could, because people compare him to Torch. Yeah. Torch is literally fire.
Right.
Firestorm is his flaming hair kind of is nuclear.
Yeah.
Like the torch could be blown out like a match. Firestorm. One of his weaknesses is high winds, but that's pretty much anybody. You get thrown around in a storm. But no, the power set is completely different.
Got it. Now, I've not seen much of the CW shows like the Arrowverse, but I did read, and you just said it, that he was portrayed in those shows, right?
Right.
How was the portrayal there?
Not good.
No.
Just like the rest of his life in the comics, it's just demuted. Couple of weird characters.
Got it.
They threw in there.
Is he a
just
hero
not a
or
good
a
job.
villain?
He's a hero.
Okay.
He's definitely a hero.
Who's he mostly associated with? Like, does he own his own run of comics? Was he featured in somebody else's?
He had his own run of comics, but when they tried to resurrect him, they would bring him back in different things, like I said, the Flash, Arrowverse,
Okay.
all this other kind of crap. So
yeah, and I did read, and you said this as well. He was in the Justice League at some point in the comics.
right.
Yeah, got it. Now, do you think they would ever? You think they could bring him on screen properly?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I do. There was some talk about rebooting him because the Titans are taking over for the Justice League. That would be a great opportunity for them to reintroduce him and bring him back as one of those members because he's rubbed elbows with, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So he has the respect of the old guard, and he would have the experience. I mean, he could probably, even though he would be butting heads, but he could probably lead the Titans from an experience standpoint. But of course, you always got Nightwing, so that wouldn't fly.
Right.
So, but definitely, they do have the ability to bring him back on live action and the animation anywhere. But they fumbled him, for decades. This character. For decades, so I don't know if they would. They want to keep bringing up, all the old guys, and then just changing out actors and actresses, and which is a shame because this is a perfect example of what I mean by, they bury all this talent, not just keeping the same old actors, but keeping the same old characters and not allowing the younger actors to come up along with some of these buried comic book characters like Firestorm, which I think would be amazing to see.
Now, last question I have about Firestorm: is there a Marvel character, hero, villain, any side of it, or who would be the closest thing to a Firestorm on the Marvel side, or power set standpoint, abilities, or is there?
I mean, I'm sure there are some, but nobody pops out.
Yeah,
I would say probably Phoenix.
Okay.
Only because of I've seen her manipulate matter, things like that. I'm gonna go with that for now.
Okay.
Maybe I'll revisit next week. I'll do a deep dive.
Gotcha.
But I try not to compare Marvel to DC characters directly.
Yeah.
Because they're two different universes, and it just kind of doesn't make any sense.
Yep. I hear you. Well, there you have it, Hidden Gem. If you like that segment, check out our Hidden Gem playlist. We've been doing this for a handful of weeks now, and there's some great hidden gems in the Hidden Gem playlist.
Yep.
And that's a good segue, Adrian. You mentioned Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to our King of the Comics finale.
Okay.
This is fun for a couple reasons. One, it's the end of the tournament, and that means we can come up with something else to fill this space on the podcast. And I think this was a cool tournament. There was, loose rules like a lot of things here on Only Comics, right? We've swapped some people out mid-tournament.
Right.
But for the most part, we broke up a bunch of Marvel, DC characters into, 8 different divisions.
Uh-huh.
And divisions stemming from psychic and mind control. We were just grouping them by similar characteristics: healing and durability, cosmic power, stealth strategy, speed, agility, magic, mysticism, and tech mastery, super strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw, in our minds, we saw Superman versus Hulk, which Hulk won that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Batman versus Iron Man. Batman won that one. Doctor Strange beat Spawn. So that we had fun along the way.
Yeah.
We had the healing durability category was that. I think that was fun. Wolverine versus Deadpool. Deadpool, he snuck by Wolverine after Wolverine beat Sabretooth. Deadpool took care of Luke Cage. It was fun all around. But we are left with our last two. This is the championship round here. The winner of all the tournament, right? Whole tournament. We had Phoenix in one corner.
Yep.
This is the Jean Grey Phoenix, right? Because Phoenix Force is, bounced around from different people. There's actually a cool run where Cyclops gets the Phoenix power. I don't know if you've ever read that.
No.
That's a pretty cool story. And then their daughter, Hope Summers. But anyway, Phoenix on one side, and then my man, Dr. Stephen Strange on the other, okay? And I had mentioned last week when we were talking about this, Adrian, reason why I was excited to see, these two at the finish line reminds me a little bit of, not Phoenix, Doctor Strange versus Scarlet Witch in the last Doctor Strange movie, which you could say Doctor Strange prevailed. He had a lot of help, though. It wasn't 1v1. Right. And the more I think about that battle, I do think if it was one-on-one, I think Scarlet Witch would have got him. Possibly. But anyway, Phoenix, Doctor Strange. Who's winning this, Adrian? I'm sold on my pick.
Okay. So if we talking about basic power sets, and Phoenix, not Dark Phoenix, right?
Right. Just Phoenix.
Just Phoenix.
Yep.
I am going to go with Strange.
Okay. So we're going to have to flip a coin on the last one.
Okay.
Well, let's talk through this. So power set. So Phoenix, let's look at what's listed here. Her abilities: energy manipulation, matter manipulation, life force manipulation. Okay. So she can manipulate just about anything. Cosmic awareness, resurrection.
This is Phoenix.
This is Phoenix.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia. It's never led me wrong my whole life,
Okay.
Dude, if we had Wikipedia in school, I'd had a 4.0. I'd have been in college, all kinds of. We didn't have that back in my day, dude. We had to actually do work.
Right.
Shit, I wouldn't be here. I'd be a professor somewhere maybe. But anyway, and then telepathy, telekinesis, right? That's listed here. What other things about Phoenix? I think the best analogy for Phoenix is her power. She has the power of essentially a sun, right? And it's cosmic, came from space. It's a force, an entity that took over Jean Grey's body, essentially, right? So that's what we have there. Now, Doctor Strange, his abilities are mastery of magic. He's a skilled martial artist, genius level intellect, and an expert surgeon. Is his ability listed here.
Wow.
Now, I know you understand these powers a lot, I guess a lot better than Wikipedia, right? Talk to me. You picked Doctor Strange. Talk to me a little bit about his powers and the way he can use magic.
Wow. Though, I mean, the way you you read that off, I was like,
seems
that
like
was
nothing,
quick,
right?
The reason I say Strange is because of his abilities, not because of necessarily his power set, but the things that power set brings to his disposal. Jean Grey, she has a lot of stuff. I mean, the Phoenix has a lot of stuff, obviously. But how she wields it, to me, kind of limits her. So, for example, and I brought this up before, like Doctor Strange, he could put Phoenix in a pocket universe, right? And or make her think that she's somewhere that she is not. I mean, that would probably be the only thing that he would have against her as far as the powers itself. Now, he does have defensive and offensive magic power spells per se, which are also very formidable. So, power set wise, I would agree with you, Phoenix.
Yeah.
But I think in a fight, it'll be Strange.
You think he'd essentially outsmart her?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't think that Phoenix's telepathic abilities, telekinesis, or not telekinesis, but telepathic abilities would prevent that from happening?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, could she see it coming?
Yes.
Now, what about Phoenix from a overall power standpoint? You would say she's more powerful, stronger,
but also Phoenix is slightly psychotic.
Yes. So this is what I'm getting
which
at.
is a negative.
Yes. Now, if she were to just unleash, right, like full blown, hit him with a shot of all the power that she has, the flame, whatever you want to call it, but what would Strange's defense be?
To remove himself from the situation. I mean, that there is nothing that he could come up with that would.
So you have to act quick.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, it would definitely, from a power standpoint, it would definitely be Phoenix. I
got
believe.
it.
Yep.
But you're still saying one-on-one, you think Strange would have the ability to outsmart her.
The ability to outsmart her, yeah. Power set,
no.
He'd be pooch screwed.
Okay. So it is a coin toss, man.
Give me a second here. I'm
Am I swaying you, Adrian?
I think so, man.
You swayed me the other day with, what was it, the Hulk Superman one.
Yeah. Okay. No towing costs.
No, okay.
No, we'll go with the Phoenix.
We're going to go with the Phoenix. So the Phoenix, after we went through the power sets and we envisioned the battle here, we think the Phoenix is her rage, her psychotic ability here would basically not outsmart, but outpower Strange.
Because her power set allows her, even though Strange could probably put her in some universe. I mean, that would really
the only
be
way,
his main play.
Yeah.
She could hit him physically and psychically at the same time.
Yeah.
Change. I mean, yeah. It'll be a pretty sad thing, I think.
Yeah. Be a good fight though, maybe.
Maybe.
If Strange struck first.
But I'm also thinking about Strange and multiverse and how they've displayed his power set on
screen.
On screen.
Yeah.
Not so much in the comics. They kind of neutered him, I believe.
In the comics or on screen?
On screen.
Really?
Yeah.
Got it. See, I've not read a lot of Doctor Strange. I've seen him in, I think he's like the career bridesmaid, right? He's always like the side, like in all these big events, Civil War or X-Men versus Avengers. He's always just like there somewhere.
Right.
But I've never been like, oh, let me go check out some Doctor Strange comics. Kind of like Thor.
Right.
Like, Thor is awesome, but I'm not going to go read, a whole line of Thor comics.
Right. Strange is kind of like a consultant, I think. He's not a superhero per se. He's a superhero consultant. He comes out when big things happen.
Yeah.
He's not going to go and save the cat out the tree unless he just happened to be walking around the corner coming from dinner or something.
Right.
So he's not that exciting in and of itself, but he's got some power.
All right. So we don't need the coin. So we're gonna put the coin away.
Yep.
All right. And that wraps up our King of the Comics tournament. The grand champion, if you will, is none other than Phoenix. So that was fun. We'll have a new segment next week. I don't know what it will be, but we will come up with something here. So on that note, our final segment this week is our deep dive. Okay. I think we've been known for our deep dives here on Only Comics. We've done them since almost day one. I think our first deep dive was into Guardians 3, maybe. And then we did our deep dive into The Flash, which still haunts us week in and week out here. But we are doing a deep dive into a movie that I absolutely love. And actually, I'm not 100% sure where you are in the movie as a whole. I know you're not a huge fan of the main actor's casting, Robert Pattinson. And I think it's good to do this, Adrian, because we agree on a lot here. We disagree on some. We did our Batman rankings not too long ago, so check that video out if you've not seen that yet, our live-action Batman and Bruce Wayne actors. And this is where, we a little bit of a disagreement here.
Yep.
Your favorite Batman is Christian Bale, right?
Yep.
Mine is Robert Pattinson.
Okay.
And one of my favorite Batman movies, or maybe it is my favorite Batman movie now, is The Batman.
Okay.
Would you say yours is Dark Knight?
Yeah.
All time.
Yep.
Okay. And by the way, someone pointed this out on TikTok or asked a question since I said that Iron Man 3 is a Christmas movie. They said, well, does that make Batman Returns a Christmas movie? And absolutely. Batman Returns is iconic Christmas movie. I watch that every year around Christmas too.
Wow.
I mean, the chick dies on a Christmas tree. You can't get more Christmas than that.
I guess.
I mean, there's Christmas lights everywhere. So anyway, The Batman is not a Christmas movie. This, I'd almost say it's like a Halloween movie, right? It takes place on Halloween.
Yep.
The beginning of the movie. Before we get into this, if we were to score this movie, Adrian, say it was brand new and we're going to give it a score, I would give this movie I think, what's the highest I've ever given something on here? Maybe an 8.5, Guardians 3, possibly. Yeah. I put this above that. This is going to be a 9.2 for me.
Wow.
Yep. It's that damn good. What's your score?
I would do 6.5 or 7.
Okay.
I'm kind of like mentally blocked on Pattinson. Even though after seeing it for the second time, I was a little bit more impressed.
Okay.
So it's not like a Flash level thing.
Oh no.
But I guess for me, it's more about the nuances of the Batman after, for me, over 40 years. You know,
Yeah.
I understand that Batman has had to start somewhere, but first of all, Pattinson doesn't physically fit, you know, the Bruce Wayne bill for me. Not the Bruce Wayne or the Batman. But he was able to, you know, successfully, you know, manage the brooding.
Yep.
Which, you know, Batman does.
Yeah.
He hasn't gotten to that playboyish Bruce Wayne yet.
Yeah.
You know, he's still an angry teenager.
Right. It's year 2.
Right, in this movie. I'm concerned about that diary he's keeping, though. Dude.
Yeah.
That's going to fall into somebody's hands.
Yeah, right?
So I guess I'm mentally blocked from Pattinson, you know, Edward and Batman, Bruce Wayne, and that's probably my biggest hang up. The storyline was cool.
Yeah.
I liked, you know, that it was dark, but not like, you know, Justice League dark.
It was not shot in James Gunn's garage.
It was not shot in James Gunn's garage. Nope. Correct. I liked what's her face?
Zoe.
Zoe.
Or Zoe Kravitz. And Selena Kyle.
I'm actually impressed with her as she, you know, continues her acting career. So kudos for her. I actually like the Penguin in this one. He was pretty cool.
Colin Farrell's Penguin was great.
Yep. There was Colin Farrell?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I didn't read, you know, who the actors thing. I wasn't interested. But if that was Colin Farrell, that was a very, very good portrayal.
Yes.
Of him.
I was getting like Tony Soprano vibes at times.
Exactly.
Right? Like
that
in
was
a good
cool.
way.
Yep. That was cool. The scenes, the cop things, all of that was cool, but it wasn't. It just didn't have that impact for me.
Yeah. What was missing from this movie for you?
Just Pattinson wasn't doing it for me.
Okay.
I mean, and that's me.
Yeah.
But
and are you purely talking the look, or are you talking the way he portrayed the character? What was it more just the look for you was off?
I think it was the look.
The look, okay.
He looked, and the other thing is that he looked more like somebody that could be recognizable if somebody just did this than any other Batman. Well, not any other Batman. Clooney was recognizable.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why I like Christian Bale, because Christian Bale, when he put on the costume and when he was Bruce Wayne, his face almost looked completely different.
Okay.
Pattinson, Affleck, all these other guys, they were just like, you got some shades on? Oh, Batman kind of thing.
Yeah.
So most of my deal with the movie was about Pattinson.
Okay.
And I'll probably grow into it assuming they let him make another movie, right?
Well, the confirmed trilogy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll grow into him, but for right now, 6.57.
Okay, 6.57. I said 9.2-ish. And I hear that. I mean, I think that is. It doesn't bother me as much as you. The Pattinson, the lack of the physical size. Like 'cause I am more partial to the big Hulk. I mean, we did the Hush deep dive last week,
right?
And my favorite Batman artist is Jim Lee.
Right.
The way he and he's only drawn Batman for a couple different comic runs. He did the Hush run. He did the Batman and Robin Superstar or All-Star one, which was atrocious.
Right.
The story was Frank Miller was off the fucking rails with this oh my God. This is the one where Batman, and he like slaps Robin and says, "I'm the goddamn Batman." Like it's nuts.
Right.
You know when Michael Keaton goes, "You want to get nuts?"
Yeah.
They got fucking nuts in this comic.
Right.
So,
right.
And then there's a new run. I don't know if you've read this run, but the Justice League, when they did the New 52, and after Flashpoint in the comics, when they relaunched the whole comic universe, they did a new origin for the Justice League, and Jim Lee drew that, and I think Jeff Johns wrote it, maybe. But that was it wasn't as good. In my opinion, the art wasn't as good as the Hush artwork.
Okay.
But it was really good to see him, and I mean putting Jim Lee's take on Superman, Wonder Woman, the whole crew. So that's a good run there. But my point is, I like the bigger Batman in the comics. Now in Pattinson or Matt Reeves' defense, who casted him, every Batman story in the comics doesn't have a big hulking Batman.
Right.
There are times where he is similar to this, but I like the bigger Batman, and I'm assuming you do too.
Yeah, I do too. And my hang up isn't Pattinson's size. It's just
Okay.
that he didn't carry it.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? It's different because like even in Hush, Batman is a slimmer Batman in Hush.
Yeah.
Which I'm and you don't like the blue and gray suit.
Right.
Which I actually do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like all this, this armored stealth fighter crap. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, by the time they got to what's his who's the last I can't think of his name.
Who?
Affleck.
Affleck.
By the time they got
yeah.
to Affleck, man, he looked literally like a stealth fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, they just get overkill on this stuff. So.
Oh, in the Justice League.
Yeah, the Justice League.
That was too much.
Yeah,
that was definitely too much.
So it wasn't Pattinson's size. I'm
Okay.
okay with a slimmer Batman, especially because it's year 2. But he just didn't. For me, he didn't carry the Batman or the Bruce Wayne persona.
Okay. Now the story you talked about the whole. Well, actually, let's go through some casting choices real quick.
Yep.
Paul Dano, Riddler. Riddler, we've joked about as being like a 5th-tier character.
Right.
I thought, speaking of Hush, I feel like this take on Riddler was very inspired by Hush.
Mm-hmm.
The wrapped face, now it's different. It was green because he's Riddler.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way the murders and stuff like that. I think you can definitely see some influence there.
Well, when I first saw it, I was so distracted by Pattinson, I didn't even realize that was Riddler. That's first and foremost. But I don't know, just some maniac. But definitely inspired by Hush. Very good portrayal.
Yeah.
And I always thought Riddler was like a thief, not a murderer. I've never seen him as that. So that was a take.
There has been some comic runs where, like, I'm thinking that there's the War of Jokes and Riddles where I want to say Tom King writes that, and you see a little more of this murder. So it has, even though we see the Hush, especially because we just read the book recently, but there are some versions of the Riddler in comics that you could see was kind of drawn from as well.
Right. So that's another reason why I didn't really think about him as the Riddler, because he wasn't stealing anything other than snatching lives. Right. He was not Jim Carrey. Oh my God, I forgot about
Remember that
Riddler?
Which I don't hate. It's a little like it kind of gets too far off the rails at times, but
it's like a George Clooney kind of Batman era kind of a deal.
Yep. I don't absolutely hate that one. Like, that was the whole during the Uma Thurman Poison Ivy,
right?
Which wasn't bad. It was the Bane in that movie was atrocious. But so all right, Paul Dano or Jim Carrey Riddler. What do you say?
Oh my God, Paul Dano.
Paul Dano all day.
Yep.
So you mentioned Zoe Kravitz.
Yep.
Great portrayal of Catwoman.
Yeah.
Now I love Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. For what it is.
Right.
Like, I think that's amazing, but that's not Catwoman from the comics.
Correct.
Catwoman from the comics isn't supernatural. Doesn't have powers. She's a thief.
Yeah, she's a cat burglar.
Yeah, exactly. Who just happens to be very great, trained in martial arts and competitive gymnastic level abilities.
Right.
But Zoe, if you've read Year One and Long Halloween and all it's a very true to comic portrayal of Catwoman. It reminds me of that Catwoman.
Speaking of Catwoman, right? So, your girl, who played Storm, Halle Berry, right?
Yeah,
her version of Catwoman.
Oh my God,
it's like they should just like not cast her as a superhero because she's played a superhero and a villain, and they both have been pretty
atrocious.
Bad.
That's a good point. Put her on the do not cast list.
Exactly.
Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon. How'd you feel about this? I'm a little mixed on. I love Jeffrey Wright. At times, his acting in this movie though felt a little forced.
Right.
Like the too deep growling voice, and it was a mixed bag for me on his portrayal.
It was a mixed bag for me because there's certain characters you just don't switch their identities. To be honest, there's only been one successful race changeover for a superhero, and that's been the Aquaman character.
Okay.
But a black Johnny Storm, a black Jim Gordon, it just doesn't work.
Okay.
For me, Maybe that whole 40 years of comic book brainwashing.
Yeah.
But just leave it the way it is. It works.
Yeah.
And
you'd want to see the orange hair.
I mean,
Gordon with the hair down here, the big old mustache.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But not only that. So then, how do you explain his daughter? What is his daughter going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a whole story behind Jim Gordon. Number one, number two. I think Jim Gordon is underrated. We discussed this last week.
Yep.
I think Jim Gordon is as much responsible for Batman as Bruce Wayne and Alfred.
Yeah.
And the parents dying. He is that critical.
Absolutely.
And he's the only one I think would have been able to talk Batman down from killing the Joker.
Yeah.
So just having him, and again, I like him as an actor.
Absolutely.
World was cool.
Yep.
But Jim Gordon, no, because there's so much else, other stuff. Barbara. There's so much other stuff behind Jim Gordon than just him as the police chief, then police commissioner.
Right. And I think the race thing doesn't bother me as much if the portrayal is still really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel with this one, it was good at times, and then times it felt forced so I feel like he could have pulled it off maybe, but that was definitely not my favorite casting choice in this, and I think more the portrayal. One of my biggest critiques of Christian Bale's Batman is the voice shit. Like, what is he saying, bro? Put the subtitles on. I never knew I needed subtitles for a Batman movie.
Right.
But I don't like when Jeffrey Wright does that here. It doesn't feel like Gordon.
Right.
Well,
it's not just that. It's not just the race thing. But like I said, there's things that trickle out of the Jim Gordon character that I'm concerned how they're gonna portray it later on.
Yeah.
Like Bruce Wayne and Barbara Gordon had a different relationship, outside of the costume.
Yeah.
How does Jim Gordon what does Barbara look like now?
Yeah.
And what's Barbara's relationship with Bruce Wayne, and what's Batgirl's relationship with Batman?
Right.
So this goes deeper than just that.
So next, John Turturro as Falcone, I thought was phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I thought that was great. And then we had Andy Serkis as Alfred. He's not my favorite Alfred.
No,
he's not.
He's a military. In Black Panther, he was a mercenary.
Yeah,
and
he plays
Alfred,
Ulysses Claw.
Right. He's not. Alfred isn't a mercenary because this Alfred, he was bulky.
Yep.
He wasn't that elegant Englishman.
No.
Which is what we're used to. That's another change. He wasn't that elegant Englishman. He was this bulldog brute looking guy. Always running around, he's supposed to take care of Bruce, but I agree. I don't agree with that portrayal.
Yep, no, was not a big fan. And then we both said Colin Farrell Penguin freaking knocked it out of the park.
Right,
great job. And some of these side casts, I like the guy with the speak of the voices. The one who's like, "You really gonna let him in here, Jim?"
Right.
Like I've read, it's just it's so like noir cop voice. This guy really gonna do I forget his name. And then even a lot of the sideline characters, I like what's his name, Peter Sarsgaard plays the Don Mitchell, or not Don Mitchell. He plays the DA, the one with the collar around his neck. I thought he did a good job. Even one who played Don Mitchell, the mayor, who was only in the movie for a few minutes. But I think overall pretty good casting. But I agree with those couple. Now the story. So you talked about the detective story, right? And we just read Hush, which was a detective story.
Right.
I love those Batman stories over a lot of the big events and actions. Like The Long Halloween, we're gonna do that episode in a couple weeks. Is probably one top 3 Batman comics of mine, and it was that early Batman story, detective story. Batman's not the best detective yet, which we saw in this, which I like because they rush things in movies, right? Like we talked about it where they go from the origin. Batman's parents are dead, and 4 minutes later he knows how to fly and glide around Gotham. Slow down, dude.
I would like to see year one. I would like to see a prequel to what I mean, I understand his parents were killed, and I mean, we all have gone through some kind of tragedy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not all of us, but you know, we have life pivoting moments, right? And I would like to see what actually changed him into like, I'm going to pursue this thing.
This version of Batman, you're saying?
Any version of Batman. I don't think I've ever seen a show or comic or whatever on what led him actually up to now. I've decided to take these steps to be this person. You know, we've seen, like in the Christian Bale one, you know, he went around, he got all this training, Ra's al Ghul, with these prisons and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You know, but that's after he decided to do
right. So you're saying that moment where he makes that decision of like,
correct,
I'm going to do something about
correct.
this.
And then specifically, I'm going to do these things and I'm going to do this looking like that and so on and so forth. And I understand, like in the Christian Bale one, well, Ra's al Ghul said that, you know, you need to be feared. Basically said, you know, you don't need to just, you know, have these abilities because anybody can do that, but you need to have something else about you that makes people, you know, afraid of you or fear you.
Right.
So I would be interested in that kind of a story.
Yeah. And this one picks up, like we said, year 2,
Yep.
Which you mentioned the diary, which, you know, hopefully no one finds it. But I really love how they started this movie. Started the introduction of Batman in the movie with Batman's narration.
Right.
We talked about that with some of the best comics, I think, have his narration bubbles throughout. And Jeff Loeb is one who writes, who always includes a narration. So I love starting the intro to Batman there. And it feels very raw. It feels very gritty. It feels like Gotham.
One of the things that I like the most, I'm a tech guy, not by profession, but I'll try. That's why I like Iron Man.
Yeah, yep.
I like the tech. So it's good to see, because most time you see Batman with refined technology.
Yes.
You know, he's got the Batwing, got the Batbolt, the Bat Sub, blah, 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 blah. It's cool to see him starting out even with simple tech, even though the contact lenses thing, that's not simple stuff.
No.
You know, but still, it's kind of in its infancy. He's got a car that he looks like he welded together himself in a garage, you know. So I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's not all polished and shiny.
Right.
It's very functional. To your point, the contact lens, I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that everything in this thing is going to be all polished, shiny. You know, it's year 2. He's just getting going. Even he's still, you know, to your point earlier, he's not Bruce Wayne yet.
Right.
Like we talking about the mask, Bruce Wayne being the mask.
Right.
He is more Batman than anything right now.
Right. And that's his only focus. He doesn't care about the company. He doesn't care about the money. He just wants to do this thing in the background. And it's cool that in year 2, he already has a reputation in the town.
Yeah.
When people see that light, they start questioning whether he's in this shadow, in that shadow, on this rooftop. So that was pretty cool. So that means he's had a tremendous impression.
Yeah.
Even though Gotham, according to his own words, was still in the shit.
Right.
You know, so a lot of stuff still going wrong, which is also why I think, you know, Jim Gordon is important in this, because he allowed him to operate in this city, even in the precinct.
Yeah.
So that was pretty powerful.
That was a cool scene. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when you're saying that, when that light hits the sky, like, I love the writing in this movie.
Yeah.
And Matt Reeves directed and co-wrote this, you know, and then Peter Craig is a guy who he co-wrote this film as well. He co-wrote The Town. You ever seen that one?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, very good, and that's what's cool. You talk about your boy Jimmy earlier shitting on you know, Marvel or comic book movies in general. But I like when they take these established directors and writers and bring them into this world, because with this movie doesn't feel like any other comic movie.
Right.
You know, as much as we're praising MCU and I love them, but a lot of their movies sometimes feel like it's just a template. You know, we're going to take this Iron Man template and we're going to swap out the characters and make Captain Marvel. And then we're going to do the same thing and make Shang-Chi. Like, to an extent, right? Right. This did not feel like any other comic movie I've seen before in my life.
It almost feels like a not a superhero movie, but like a cop that has, you know, you see those movies where cops have been wronged or whatever, and, you know, they turn it like the what's my boy? not the executioner. With the
Denzel
skull on his
movie?
face.
The what?
With
Punisher.
Punisher.
Yep.
Almost like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like Batman is like the Punisher,
Yeah.
but richer kind of a deal.
Absolutely.
But you were saying something earlier about collaboration. I think, and maybe this is a first. I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this, but you know how rappers collaborate on songs?
Yep.
Why don't Jimmy, instead of shitting on people, collaborate with other directors?
There you go.
And then they do like a one-off thing. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll be good. Maybe it won't be.
Yeah.
But I think, these directors that are doing these powerful movies get with other directors that do powerful movies, or fledgling directors, bring along a junior every once in a while, throw them in the mix, and just do like some nice collaboration, and then you guys go off and do your own thing again. But I think that'll be a pretty powerful thing if some directors. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be however long it takes to put out an album, but
Right.
I'm sure creating a movie is years versus whatever length of time it does to create make an album. But I think collaboration is probably the way to go, because it just seems like these guys
like the Avengers of directors is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Bring them together.
Exactly.
Yeah. Instead of shitting on them, help them out.
Yep.
God. Some other. I'm trying to think of downs, because most of it I'm going to give this movie as praise, but
I take care of the downs.
Yeah, you take care of them. But the other thing that I'm not, and this is not, it's probably unfair to put this critique on this movie in general, but I feel like since the Michael Keaton era of Batman, since the Tim Burton movies, we've not seen a really great Batcave on screen. You had Batman Begins had the Batcave, and then the Manor got destroyed, and then in Dark Knight it was like some underground garage.
Right.
Remember that? And then, Batman vs Superman, we see a little bit of it, but that movie's like, we don't even talk. Let's talk about that movie, the better. And in this movie, he doesn't even live in Wayne Manor anymore. He's in the Clock Tower,
right?
The Wayne Tower or whatnot. And the Batcave is essentially, an old underground railroad type of subway station abandoned, which it looked more like the Batcave than the Dark Knight version. But I want to see the
Bat computer,
the tradition, the Bat computer, like the old school Batcave. I want to see the big dinosaur. I want to see the big penny. Like I want to, and maybe year two we're not going to see it yet. But that is one thing I did not like about this movie was no Wayne Manor, no Batcave.
Well, like you said, I mean, he's a junior in this.
Yeah.
So he's developing. He hasn't found all this stuff, or he hasn't developed or felt the need for it.
Right.
His soul thing, he doesn't even want to be Bruce Wayne at this point.
Right,
so
right.
he's definitely not going to be concentrating on, feng shui, bat cave kind of a deal. So I'm okay with seeing that because that gives him an opportunity. It gives us both, and by us I mean the film and me, accepting Pattinson, an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
He's going to grow into all his nuances. He's going to figure out the Batman, Bruce Wayne combination thing, and I'm going to get to see Pattinson grow into this figure, hopefully. And I hope he has a good run. I hope he has like a Wolverine level run with this character. In other words, remember when Jackman came out, he was
tiny.
He was tiny, running around like a maniac or whatever.
True.
But now he's more developed. And he's not quite like a maniac, but more savage, which to me is like a step up.
Yep.
But so hopefully Pattinson will grow into this thing, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Man, you're coming around the other side of this by the end of this deep dive, Adrian.
No, it's not that. It's just that you get you get some time to digest some things.
Yeah.
It's not as bad. That's why people talk it out. That's why we talk things out.
Absolutely.
Things aren't
maybe
as
Jimmy
bad.
can come here and we can talk it out with Jimmy.
I need a moment on Jimmy.
You need a moment. Okay.
Yeah,
next time.
Let me get my little rage out for this week, and then maybe next week.
I got you. A lot of the other, we're talking about Batcave, talking about different settings. I do think I would say this is my favorite Gotham I've ever seen on screen.
Okay.
I love the raininess, the darkiness, the darkness, and the way they shot it. They used that new technology where it's not green screen. Mm-hmm. It's basically a massive LED, almost dome that they build a live set in front of, and they project whatever background they want on. It started with The Mandalorian.
Right.
First time they used it. And they use Unreal Engine, which is a game engine.
Right.
And they can put real photorealistic assets on that. And because it's LED, how bright the lights are, you're getting the LED light shine. That's why in those scenes when they're on the rooftop, it really looks like the sun is freaking shining on Batman and shit like that because of this mask. So I think that helped them out a bunch.
Nice.
And just the overall look of the city. And I know they did some CGI where they took shots of like London and merged them with other cities. So they created Gotham instead of just filming it in Pittsburgh and telling us it's Gotham.
Right.
You know, Dark Knight, no offense.
I also like the simple stuff too. Like when Catwoman, when Batman first followed her to her hotel, and she got changed, and she came out of the room and just kind of flipped down silently. So those little nuanced moments, I actually like that. So it's not all about, even though I'm a tech guy, I also like those little. So this show did have nuance. It had comedy relief. It had comedy relief. Not like the Thor, Love and Thunder.
No,
shit.
there's no goats.
But I like the comic relief, like Penguin kept calling him, or somebody was like vengeance. Vengeance. He showed up vengeance, like that kind of comic relief. And it had, also the storyline, the detective part, which is what Batman is. He's a detective.
Right.
So they did make this into a detective movie, which I liked.
Yeah. And, I mean, talking about the comic relief, it wasn't even like, a lot of it weren't even comedic moments.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, Batman was funny, but not.
Right.
Like, when he's in front of the Iceberg Lounge, and the one twin answers the door, and he brings the other guy, and he goes, if you don't get out of here, you're going to get blood on that suit. He goes, who, mine or yours?
Right.
Like, it's funny.
Right.
Or when he's talking about the precinct, and then the guy's like, I got you on assaulting an officer, and he hits another one. He goes, now you got me on 3.
Right.
Like, it's just, that type of stuff was funny.
Right. To me, that's comic relief.
Yep.
Not this overt, ha ha ha, I made a joke, why aren't you laughing kind of a thing. Nah, that's garbage.
Absolutely. But yeah, Gotham, I love the Iceberg Lounge. That was cool. I think it was the, best Iceberg Lounge portrayal. I don't think we've ever seen Iceberg Lounge in another movie. Now you talking about Danny DeVito's Penguin, which was again for what it was, I thought was great. Right. But that's not the Penguin from the comics. Right. So location's great. Gotham PD I thought was cool. The priest looked like it would be in Gotham. And I like that it was small. And what I mean by, like, there was a few locations and everything happened in those few locations. Right. And if you even, I didn't pick up on this until like probably the 4th or 5th time I've seen the movie, but the diner where Riddler was at was right across the street from the Iceberg Lounge. Like you see it early in the movie, and there's even the apartment that he was at, which was right at, like, kind of across from there, was all in the same shot from the beginning of the movie. And Falcone's hideout or whatever, his office, whatever you want to call it, was above the Iceberg Lounge. See,
that's all those little nuggets that make the movie interesting in hindsight. Because obviously you're not necessarily noticing them.
Oh, you ain't gonna see it
the first time you're looking at it, but it's definitely those little, again, nuances.
Yeah, you mentioned nuance. This is probably one of the most nuanced comic movies I've ever seen. Like all these little things, these subtle callbacks, Easter eggs, whatever you want to call them. But anyway, so we talked about the detective story. I guess the murder mystery piece to this, right? Now we knew it was Riddler, but Batman didn't know it was Riddler yet,
right?
Or didn't know who Riddler was. And Riddler was pretty violent, man. They did a great job of making the violence look very, I guess, almost grotesque, but still keeping it PG-13 because it wasn't rated R.
Right.
Little things like when he's in the car and he's beating him, with that carpet tool, the camera's blurred.
Right.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Right. Or when he put the cage on the other person's face with the rat in it. Yeah. You didn't see, the carnage, right. At the time, which would have been, graphic. Yeah. But so you're right. I mean, they kind of portrayed it, but not really.
Yeah. Even like little subtle things like the 44 Below Club, which essentially is pretty much like a whorehouse. Right. Right. But you didn't see any acts, but they did it.
It was understood.
It was. Yeah. Right. Which I thought was really cool. And I like that, they did a good job of juggling all the characters. Like the Penguin was not the main villain. Riddler was. Penguin was more of a sideline character. So was Falcone. Maroney was mentioned, but he was already in jail. You know, these are all characters from like the Long Halloween and stuff like that. You could tell it was heavily influenced there. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, I like the fact that Batman is not the best detective yet.
Right.
Penguin, even, you talking about funny things, this is more like if you're, you know, a comic fan, you pick up on little Easter eggs. But with Penguin's like, oh, the world's greatest detectives over here, like, which is what Batman's known as. Right. Even that, like when Gordon's like, look at this or whatever, like it was just Jeffrey, take it down a few notches, Jeffrey. So
one of the things I'm sitting here thinking about. Yeah. There weren't any moments where I wanted that didn't make sense. And like in Blue Beetle, right? Yeah. When they in the cave or whatever. Yeah. And the girl CEO, whatever, she runs and she pushes the other girl out the way. That didn't make sense to me because now you're just lengthening the movie. Right. So instead of pushing the girl and you both get on the other side of the falling ceiling, you push the girl and then you step back. You don't die underneath all the rubble, but now you're stuck in this thing. Right. So that's a moment that didn't make sense to me. Yeah. There was also no moments in this Batman where I was like, can we just move this along? You know what I'm saying?
And it's a long-ass movie.
Right. So I wasn't like, oh, my God, can we please? I wasn't watching my watch. I'm like, can we please just move this along? Like in what was it? The Matrix. Yeah. At the end, I think it was like 3. And the girl was dying or whatever. And I literally said in the movie theater, can you please just fucking die? Because they just kept talking through it and talking through it and talking through it. And I didn't see any of that in this movie. And one more thing.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And this movie is damn near 3 hours long. Right. And it does not feel like it. Yep. You know, I remember watching it the first time. I remember it felt like a constant moving ride. Like it just did not stop. And every to your point, every scene mattered. Right. Every interaction made an impact on the overall. Nothing was wasted. And I like the I said I like the fact that Batman was not the perfect detective yet, but I also like that because he's in this year 2 phase, and you see this character arc. A lot of times with these superhero movies, comic movies, you don't see much of a character arc, right? Like the character's the same character at the end of the film as he was in the beginning. A lot of times, right? Some of these good ones, like this Batman, he starts off as a true vigilante. Right. I mean, he's beating the shit out of people because he enjoys it. Right. Right. Like the subway. I mean, he's literally preying on criminals. Like, now I get it. They're down there, they're about to attack this dude because they're film. It's Halloween, so it's cute to knock people out and film it. Apparently, right.
Unfortunately, that's still happening
exactly
today. That's ridiculous. But
not even this movie had some not over the top in your face, but it had some social commentary in it. Right. Like, yes, that is something that still happens. And some of the racial stuff, some of the income disparity type of classism, if you will. Catwoman kind of alludes to that. Right. But yeah, I mean, it starts off when you first introduced to the Batman, which I think is an epic scene. Right. Where they're in the subway and you hear him coming and everybody stops and my man just unleashes. Right. And then the whole, I'm vengeance. Right. I like his bat voice. It's not. I mean, I know you like Christian. Are you upset because you can actually understand this one, or
no? I mean, I wasn't thinking about the voice, but because that doesn't roll into whether I like something or not. But I mean, I can agree. Yeah. I can agree. He was definitely more understandable. Yeah.
But it sounded different enough.
But it was also his voice, the voice of a year 2 Batman.
Yes.
Too. So, Christian is an old, 8 pack of cigarettes a day smoking Batman.
He wore out those vocal cords and all that that stuff. But I did like, and I like when it's a subtle, like it doesn't need to sound like a whole nother person, but it's different enough. So I did like that, but I like the inexperience of Batman. Sure. One thing I did not like the look of was that squirrel suit, when he's about to jump off the building.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think that was a little much. I know they're trying to make it practical, but I'd have been
Right.
okay if there was just something in his cape that
Right.
But I like that he crashed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even the look, you could tell what was cool about this movie was there were a lot of things that we seen this Batman do that Batman's done a million times in the comics or other movies, but we were seeing him do them for the first time here.
Right.
Like, when he shot up with the grappling hook, that was a cool little visual
Right.
up the Gotham City PD. And then when he gets up there, the look of like fear on his face right before he jumped.
Right.
We've never seen that in a movie
Right.
because we always see the established Batman.
Right. He hesitated.
Yeah.
The established.
He's never done it
would've
before.
He would have just not even thought about it.
Oh,
Just
right,
gone.
yeah.
And he wouldn't have had a squirrel suit.
No.
He would have had a grappling hook, went to another building, something like that.
Yep.
Or he would have had like more traditional wings as
Yeah.
opposed to, whatever that thing was that he had. Or just, let his cape drift him down like a parachute.
Exactly.
Some variation of that, but hey, they had to adapt.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on them for it.
No. But I did. I thought that, to your point, nuance, where he's oh shit, never done this before. But he does it, and he doesn't have complete control. He crashes and
Right,
burns.
right.
You mentioned the Batmobile. I know you're a fan of the Tumbler.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I was always a big fan of the Tumbler. Look-wise, my favorite Batman or favorite Batmobile on screen was the Michael Keaton Batmobile. That was my favorite. The way that the look of it. That's always been my favorite. It kind of it's right up there with the Batman animated series Batmobile, right?
Right.
But I enjoyed the Tumbler. I thought Tumbler was great. I didn't really like the Ben Affleck tank. I'm not a big fan of when the Batmobile is a freaking tank. That's not my thing. But this Batmobile I loved. To your point, it does look like something. And actually, in the beginning of the movie, we see when they first go into this Batcave, we see pieces of the car everywhere.
Right.
He's literally putting it together, himself. And there's a cool little, I guess it would be, it's not a comic. It's a little novel that was put together about this Batman character before he becomes Batman. It's written. It's part of this storyline.
Okay.
It's on. I think I had to buy it as a regular book, but in this story, this Batman is big into street racing, and that's partly why his Batmobile is a muscle car.
Got it.
Yeah, so that you get to see some continuity there.
Okay, that makes
There's
sense.
even, I've not read these yet, but Paul Dano, the actor, wrote some Riddler comics that tell the backstory of his character, and I've heard they're pretty good. I've not checked those out either. So there's a lot of other additional content, building off this movie. But I loved this Batmobile, and I loved the introduction to it. I think that scene was one of the highlights of this movie.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about the Batmobile?
Oh, I loved it too.
Yeah.
Again, it looked like Rodhead had went in his garage.
Yeah.
And, he had some tools, had some metal,
Yep.
had an engine. Just happened to have a jet too, but
Yep.
whatever. So it looked like I always like movies where, and that's the thing that's why Spider-Man is so popular. Because people feel like they could be Peter Parker.
Yes. Yep.
This Batmobile feels like I could have, went out and built this thing myself.
You can see yourself driving it almost.
Oh, definitely. I can definitely see myself driving that.
Hell yeah.
But, it looks real.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the Michael Keaton Batmobile. It's cool and all, but it looks like it had to be manufactured somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
This Batmobile looks like he built it himself, which is what he did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. That is one thing in some of these movies where, like, we even see it. Like, I love the Iron Man, Tony Stark, and the Spider-Man, but you're like, this guy built all these things himself.
Right.
In like the 3 months that were between these films. Really, he built this arc reactor, all this stuff, and I get it's and nowadays it's even crazier in these movies.
Right.
But you're right. I do like that it just feels very hands-on, DIY. Right, he's just down there plugging away with his eye makeup on, and that was a highlight. I like a lot of the tech and gadgets in this movie because they're very practical.
Right.
To your point, everything makes sense. Even the grappling hooks that he has right on his arm.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was like everything was engineered to work as if it was real
Right.
versus like this fantasy world. So I like the groundedness of this.
I like the fact that there was no batarangs.
Yeah.
Because those things require skill.
Right.
Which he obviously hadn't developed at that point.
Yeah.
So the spikes on his wrist and stuff that he could like shoot out or something like that, that actually made sense.
Yeah.
So I would have been disappointed. I'm like, you know how much skill it takes to throw those batarangs
Right.
the way, Batman does?
Yeah, you can't do that day one.
Exactly. No day one on that.
Nope. Again, everything's pretty practical. And I like his level of like don't give a fuck for most of the movie.
Right.
Like he goes right up and this is another thing where it's kind of funny but not when they realize that it's tied back to Penguin, him and Gordon. And Gordon's like, you'll never get in there without a warrant. And he's just like, yeah. Like doesn't say anything like, okay, dude, I'm just gonna go in there.
Right.
And then he has no problem jacking up Penguin. Like,
Right.
And even when he goes, do you know my reputation? And he's like, yeah, do you?
Right.
Like, yeah, I know the real reputation, dude. Do you?
That's right.
Like Batman just gives no fucks in the beginning of this movie.
Didn't he bust in there as Bruce Wayne?
He did at one point too.
Yep.
When the news came out about his father and Falcone being connected to it.
Yeah.
Then he rolled up in there as Bruce Wayne and they just let him in. And what was funny is the twins now, like their noses are all jacked up.
Right.
I love that too. Like sometimes in movies, guys in a fight, he's in like a scene, 3 minutes later, his face is fine.
Right.
Even the cop that he broke his nose, we saw that later in the movie.
Right.
Continuity. Yep.
Continuity, baby.
Man, it's like they were listening to you.
Right.
Even though this movie came out before we did the podcast.
Exactly, right.
And then there's this cool little subplot of there being an informant in the Salvatore Maroni's case. And we get to see, like, in a lot of the I guess, good comic book, or even in year one, what you talked about, GCPD they were corrupt in the year one comic. And we get to see a lot of that here. Like, there's a few good cops, but a lot of these guys were tied into this renewal fund.
Right.
And I just like how practical, like, these are things, to your point, that really go on. Now, it all's happening in Gotham, but these are things that, government, do they not take advantage of funds and give them to people they probably shouldn't have? Or organized crime not tied in with governments at time? Probably, like, so you get to see a lot of, again, social commentary and I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, but I like the progression from this vengeance-like character to now realizing he has to become the hero at the end.
Right.
And we don't do a scene by scene because there's a lot of good. This movie's 3 hours long. We'd do a freaking 10-hour deep dive if we did that. But I like how towards the end he realizes it's bigger than just me trying to get revenge.
Right.
And we get to see him starting to turn into this Batman hero. Because in the beginning, I wouldn't call him a hero at all.
He was just a brute out, beating people up and stuff in the street.
He was out for justice in his mind, vengeance, and it comes. And I love that they changed a handful of things, but the core things that make Batman they kept intact. Right. Batman is Batman because his parents were killed. Yes, we didn't see exactly how. And even when they talk about it, it seems to be a little bit different. Like his father was running for mayor at the time, and they were killed during this campaign.
Right.
They didn't say anything about a theater leaving, all that stuff. So who knows, maybe a little different. But the key parts to why he's became Batman are still intact. He is there to prevent what happened to his family from happening to other people.
A twist I found interesting was that they made his mother out to be psycho.
Yeah,
that was pretty interesting. Yep. And that some of the key decisions that Bruce Wayne's father made was to keep his wife's condition out of the public's awareness. So that was an interesting twist.
Absolutely. And in her family, and this I've read this in some comics where her family's tied to the Arkhams.
Yep.
Because if you go back Gotham history, Arkham's one of the early families, so were the Waynes. So I thought that was a cool little inclusion. Again, to your point, everything makes sense.
Right. And speaking of storyline, I like the Falcone Selena Kyle connection. Because it's definitely one of those things where when you see it in the beginning, you think just like Bruce Wayne was thinking. They're a couple or something, or there's at least something physical going on between them, and it was. Her father or whatever. So I like that dynamic too. So that was pretty interesting.
I can't wait for you to read Long Halloween. It pulls from that a little bit.
Okay.
And this is, we've talked about this here where movies pull from comics, but they don't need to be a scene by scene creation every single time. Right?
Exactly.
This is very inspired by Year One. It's inspired by The Long Halloween. There's an Ego comic, which this is inspired by, and a handful of others, but it's not a copycat.
Right. And that comment, who made that comment? If you wanted to be like the comic, go read the comic.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I didn't have to go read the comic. This was a good enough storyline.
Exactly.
It had a lot of little good elements in it.
Yep.
And it was true enough to the characters.
Yes.
That I didn't have to go read the comic.
Right.
It was entertaining. It was a good show.
Yep. I also like the little subplot between Bruce and Alfred, where in the beginning Bruce is not like, he's not looking at Alfred as that father. He's almost mad at Alfred a little bit.
Right.
Like he's like, you're my father.
Right. Because Alfred is trying to keep him away from what he wants to be doing.
Exactly.
He's forcing him to be, it's like he just stopped. He's growing out of that those teenage years, becoming an adult, but he still have those teenage tendencies.
Yep.
That's how this Bruce Wayne Batman is being, portrayed.
Right.
And the relationship with Alfred is not, it's more like a interfering uncle.
Right.
Most definitely not a butler.
No.
Because I don't think Alfred was ever just a butler.
No.
So he's annoyed by him, and it shows, which is
Yeah.
also good movie.
Absolutely. And because then we see the progression where Alfred's, almost killed.
Right.
The bomb that was meant for Bruce Wayne. And now Batman, and now we get to see why he's been very cold to Alfred, because he's like, I don't ever want to feel that feeling again of being afraid to lose someone because he lost his parents. So he's literally just like burying all these emotions, which is why we see, even with the early stuff with Selena, where she's like, I'm starting to feel like I'm a fish on a hook here. And then like, you don't even care about me. And then he's just like, looks at her, and it almost makes it seem like he's like, about to I don't know, caress her or something.
Right.
He's just like checks to make sure the contact's good. Like he don't give a shit.
Right.
Man.
You're a tool.
Yep. And he's just and he's fighting it though, but which is very, you're talking about Hush, where their dynamic was very heavily featured. I mean, Jim Lee will tell you Hush is or Jeff Loeb, it's a love story,
right,
between him and Catwoman. But we see how that ended, where he basically brushed her off again because of one little thing she said, and I think we see that Batman here, where he likes her, he can't, but he has no problem cutting you off if it screws with his mission.
Right. I mean, but that's typical of pretty much most superhero characters. Yeah. The only superhero characters that don't have that, I can't bring you into my world because I'm afraid that you're going to get hurt, are the ones that are public. Like eventually the Tony Stark, when he told the world that he was Iron Man, things like that. That's when relationships change.
Yep.
But when they have secret identities, all their relationships are most likely tragic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then there's a lot of other cool stuff in this movie. The whole deal when Selena goes to Falcone and tries to kill him.
Right.
And we get to see a little bit of the no kill rule friction that has been there between Batman and Catwoman in the comics.
Right. She
wants to kill the guy who killed. Now, that's another critique. Annika. Why do we have to pick a name that's so obscure like that? Why? But anyways.
Well, because it explains her role, Catwoman's role. That's why she left the apartment. She had to go get the passport, which is why Batman followed her. So
I get that.
It was kind of weaved in. Well, yeah, there's that.
I never heard his name. Can we just pick a more normal name? But anyways,
right? Susan, John.
Yeah, there's some shit. But yeah. So and because of that, when she finds out that this guy killed her, or Falcone killed her friend, she had the voicemail recording. She has the cop, basically who she's holding responsible, and she throws him off the roof.
Right.
Batman saves it. That was that was so Catwoman, right?
Right.
Like,
definitely.
Don't throw your life away. She's like, it's all right, I got 9, and kicks him. Like that was so Catwoman.
Right.
And then of course Batman goes because the one flaw he's got, But you mentioned the brooding. I like it. Here's anyone who critiques that. Think about this movie is very practical. This movie is very grounded. If you're 9 years old and your parents are killed in front of you, and you're a billionaire orphan, and you want to seek revenge on the people who cause these types of acts, and you're burying all your emotions, you're probably going to be pretty brooding and depressed.
Right.
It's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Everything's not going to be you ain't going to be, Tony Stark. Going, hey, what's up? Everything's great. Yeah, life ain't a party.
Right.
So that makes sense.
Yep.
And I said this before here, I have faith in Matt Reeves as far as growing this story from movie to movie because of what he did with the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Those movies started, you talk about the one with James Franco where Caesar's essentially a pet.
Right.
And then by the third movie, it's an all-out war film. Mm-hmm. And that trilogy I thought was great.
Yeah.
So I can see. So everyone who's like, he's not the real Bruce Wayne, I'd be willing to bet by the second, maybe, definitely by the third movie, we're going to see a full-on Playboy, Bruce Wayne doing his thing because these characters, Matt Reeves is not going to let this story go on and not have these characters grow.
Right. I'm along for the ride. I mean, like I said, it's just some adjustment for me to see Edward doing this, but cool for him. But I always think that, and I think most people kind of do that.
Yeah.
They have somebody set in their mind who they like, and then it's hard for somebody else to come in and take over their role. Mm-hmm. And so there's a period of adjustment, and that's what I'm going through. I'm going through my period of adjustment.
Yep.
But speaking of Edward, right? So whatever happened to what's this kid, Taylor Lautner from Twilight?
Oh yeah,
that dude just went away, right?
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Wow.
Man, so Edward won in the long run.
Right.
Edward won in the long run.
Wow.
Eventually, they capture Riddler. This whole riddle of bring the rat into the light. Falcone's actually the rat, we find out. Yep. That's a cool little twist. I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Falcone, of all people, being a rat, that's interesting. And then he's killed. It looks as if Ozzy kills him, because he's about to pull a gun on him because he calls him a little gimp or something. Mm-hmm. And then he's actually sniped from above, and he's in the light, so Batman pulled Falcone into the light. Riddler kills him. They go on this wild goose chase, and they ended up finding Riddler at the diner.
Yeah.
Which I like that scene because it just shows you how sick and twisted he was.
Right.
It kind of reminds me, maybe it's a callback, maybe it's influenced by, but The Dark Knight where the Joker wants to get caught. Mm-hmm. Right. So we get to see Riddler kind of doing his own little Joker impersonation here, getting caught. And then we get to the interrogation scene where, I thought Riddler knew that he was Bruce Wayne the first time I saw that.
Right.
That was, and this is when the directors mess with you, and it's okay.
Right. But it was all about that funding thing.
Yes.
It was all about his father, and then the son has to pay for the price of the father and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I agree. I thought he was too. He even thought he knew.
Oh yeah, he was shook.
Right.
And then it was all and this goes to show you how crazy Riddler really was, because he was actually convinced Batman was helping him.
Right.
And I'm like, I go back, I'm like, did he really believe that? And then when he realized, when Batman's like, no, you're just crazy, he starts freaking the hell out. I like that interrogation scene.
Right.
That was pretty cool.
It's like when, Mike, I think you're on my side. You working with me in my cause, and then you say something that makes me realize all this time you have not been with me.
Right.
And so I just go ape shit. So yeah.
Yep. And then from there, we realized that the full plan was more than just killing off all these, high-profile politicians, cops, or whatnot. Riddler had placed bombs throughout Gotham and floods Gotham, which you ever read? There was a storyline in Batman that led to No Man's Land, where Gotham was flooded, but I think it was due to an earthquake or something, cataclysm or some shit like that. I've read some of No Man's Land, but that's what this is inspired by.
Yep.
Where that exact thing happens, and then we get to see. Gotham's flooding. Mm-hmm. I liked how their repurpose of Madison Square Garden, Gotham Square Garden.
Right.
That was cool little. And that's where the end of this movie pretty much happened, where there's people inside Gotham Square Garden. It's now flooding because they're having this political. I think maybe it was the actual election or something or. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Bella Real, nice little side. I thought she was a cool character, sideline character, played well by the actress. I forget her name. But everyone ends up at this Madison Square Garden type of venue, and the Riddler. I like the use of social media in this too.
Right.
where the Riddler has a following and he's getting them almost kind of mirrors the whole January 6th deal, right? So we see that Batman shows up, and this is probably one of my favorite scenes when he's up in the rafters attacking these guys. That I know you only play Ratchet and Clank, but there's a series of Arkham games, and I believe that the combat and the stealth attack in this scene was influenced by some of the combat in those games. It was very similar. Batman's in the rafters a lot. He attacks, and then actually backing up a bit, one of the really cool scenes when he came out of the Falcon's elevator, and it's all pitch black, and it's only being lit up by the gunshots.
Right.
And now he's got the armored suit, so we see him flash in and flash out. I thought that was really cool.
Right. I like the fact that even in the beginning, when people were shooting at him, he took a couple of direct hits from bullets, but the armor really isn't designed to be a all-inclusive bulletproof, knife-proof costume. There's a lot of deflection in there.
Yes.
And a lot of that stuff is he's protected by more deflection than just brute force. And I like the fact that he's trained himself enough to be able to do the deflection. So it's not just the tech that saved him. It's also his level of skill, even in year 2.
Absolutely. And you see that the suit's pretty banged up. Like it's not in pristine condition.
Right.
Which it should be.
You don't have a car chase and all the cars are on this street, they're all banged up, and then you take a left and they're brand new again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But that flood got me thinking about something, since Batman eventually makes everybody go through him to operate in his city, right?
Yeah.
So that bombing thing, if this was year 10 of Batman, I would be disappointed that he would even allow somebody to plant bombs to be able to flood the city.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that, the Batman character, seeing this as a vulnerability for his city, he's probably going to shore that shit up.
Absolutely. Yeah, because he's not really taking that stance in this where, maybe a little bit in my city.
Yeah.
I think he's starting to take ownership of it, right? So, yeah, we see the flood, and then this is where, they're at the Madison Square Garden type of venue. They're fighting in the rafters, and Batman, he gets kind of taken out a little bit. He gets shot, the shotgun, dazes him. To your point, he's not bulletproof. So he gets hit with this shotgun. He's kind of dazed. And then Selina's there, and we see one of Riddler's goons is basically, going off on Selina.
Right. And
then Batman loses it. He injects himself with some type of, and we've not confirmed what this is. I mentioned to you there's a comic run called Batman Venom, where Batman fails to save a kid, I believe, and he wasn't strong enough to save. It was, I think a car was in the water, is drowning, some shit like that. I could be wrong. Again, we are not experts on all the comics. I could be completely wrong, but anyways, because of that, he ends up. Long story short, he ends up taking some drugs called Venom. And it's like a green pill, which is the same shit Bane takes to make him stronger. He gets addicted to it. So this little thing he shot in his leg, and I like how the suit had the spot right there for it, just in case, bro.
just in case.
But it may be venom, maybe adrenaline, whatever it was. But, dude, he takes that, and he about caves my man's face in.
Right.
And this is where we see the change. Because up until this point, he's still just vengeance. He's still... he's trying to save people, but he's also trying to inflict some pain. And because this guy was choking Catwoman, I think.
Right.
And then when he's done pounding his face in, the guy's crazy, and he goes, "I'm vengeance." He's all beat up on it. And I think he kind of realized, oh shit, it's probably a little too much.
Right.
And then, towards the end, so this facility is flooding, and there's this big what's the shit called above the big screen. Anyways, the big box screen above the arena is about to fall into the water, which would essentially kill everyone in there because it would be freaking electrocuted. And this is where the first time I think we see Batman attempt to make a sacrifice. I'm going to jump and save these people regardless of what happens. Right. Obviously, he survives, but I think that's where we see that transition into the hero. Which I thought was cool. To Matt Reeves' credit, they crafted a great film, great writing, a lot of attention to detail went into this. They also were allowed to take their time. Right. We talk about Marvel rushing shit out, and even DC. this Blue Beat, all these things, or when they rushed the DCEU and we got Justice League in the second movie, like they took their time with this movie. Just like the next one isn't coming out, I think it's 2025. Wow, which is 3 years from the time they started this.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, it does. If you want to make a good movie,
right. Like I said, I'll sit on a decade and watch a character mature if it makes sense.
Yeah, but you don't need it every 2 weeks, right?
No. I'm good with that. But even like the Wolverine, he matured over like a decade. Captain America, he matured over like a decade or something like that. So all that stuff is good. But when you were listing the movies earlier, like the movies that were part of the DCU and the MCU, and I'm like, damn, dude, we watched a lot of movies, dude. And that's just those are the live action things.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot.
It has. Oh, it's been a run, dude. It has. Yeah. I'm excited for. So I guess coming out of this movie, the ending I thought was really done well.
Right.
It's like no one really won. Batman saved these people. And he mentions in his end narration that basically he realizes he needs to be essentially a beacon of hope for the people in Gotham, because Gotham's a pretty shitty place.
Right.
And he needs to be that kind of light, versus just being the vengeance. So we see that him and Selena kind of part ways.
Right.
She mentions she's going to Bloodhaven, which is a location we see a lot in the comics. Batman's kind of on. He's no longer on the GCPD's shit list, right? Because he's kind of got rid of a lot of the corrupt cops there. And we saw when Falcone came out of the Iceberg Lounge, the cops that were not on his side, because that was the other thing. Do we take down Falcone? Well, he's got his hand, he's got all the cops in his pocket.
Right.
But there was a handful that weren't. So I thought it did a very great job of wrapping up this story as much as it could, but also setting up the future.
Right.
I like the ending.
Yeah, it was cool. It was I think how he felt for Selena was a pivotal moment in his development.
Right.
In that he couldn't just be vengeance.
Yes.
Because he possibly realized that I still do have a heart underneath all this whatever I'm wearing, and there has to be something else to me other than just beating people to a pulp.
Yeah.
So I agree. I like the ending.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he's going to be looking around Gotham and it's like, dude, we can't have another flood.
Yeah.
Coming up in this joint.
Yep.
Not in my city.
Yes. So coming out of this, the Batman 2 is the next movie coming out of this. As of right now, that's supposed to hit theaters in 25.
Okay.
With the strike, would have been pushed back maybe, but I think they've had enough time where we hopefully don't see anything there. There's also the Penguin series, which is
with Colin Farrell.
Yep, Colin Farrell.
Nice.
It's supposed to take place pretty much the minute this movie ends. He said that the first scene in that he read in the script was basically Falcone's office flooding, and now Oz is pretty much in control. So we get this. What I've read about this is it's pretty much a show where the Penguin, we're going to see his rise to power pretty much.
There was actually an animated Batman, Young Robin, they were on like a expedition in the Arctic looking for something. And they found a bunch of dead bodies all over the place. It was just kind of weird. And the Penguin was like standing up on some iceberg naked.
Okay.
So it was kind of the Penguin's, how his origin.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. So that was pretty interesting. It'll be interesting to see if the live action is kind of similar to that.
Yeah. And now as far as filming, they started filming March 1st. Of this past year, and then they were shut down due to the strike. So at that point, the show was supposed to debut in 2024 on Max. So 8 episodes is what they're saying. Which I'd be ready for this. I'm kind of like I've had enough of the Marvel shows for a little bit, and I know Loki's 2's coming out, so maybe that can kind of bring me. But the past few, I'm like, with the Secret Invasion, it's got a bad taste in my mouth still.
Right.
I'd like to see DC take a shot at the shows.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
All right.
So
here I got something. It says that so far the footage, I guess they did some test footage, It had the look of a dark Sopranos with Farrell playing a full-on crime boss.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, so that would be, it says Soprano energy, and noted its continued use of the dark orange wash aesthetics. Like, I love the look of the Batman movie. The dark orange, red, and stuff throughout. Right. Very, like, I love, you know, we talk about this with the Batman comics. Like, you pull up, you know, Gotham, in any damn story, it's raining, there's lightning, or the sky's red. You know,
right,
like, I love that. So there you have it. I say 9.2. You say 6.57.
6.57. I'll
talk you up to a 7.
You talked me up to a solid 7.
Right.
It was, you know, again, I've only seen it twice. You've seen it 8 or 9 times.
Yeah, something like that.
So you see more of the nuancing things that's going on in the show. But I do realize I need to give you know, Pattinson a break, let him evolve, because I didn't like Jackman as Wolverine when he first came
X-Men
out. X-Men
1, yeah, he was a skinny guy.
So you know, good for you. You know, it's good, Pattinson, that you know, cleave yourself away from Lauritsen or whatever his name was, Twilight Boy,
right?
The other Twilight Boy, because he just went away, dude.
Yeah, he did.
He was like Emilio Estevez. He's just gone, dude, on
a milk carton somewhere. The other thing about the Penguin series, Sophia Falcone is going to be in there. Carmine Falcone's daughter, who is in a lot of the comics, who you'll see in Long Halloween too. Cool. So, well, there you have it. That is our deep dive, our only comics patented deep dive into the Batman. And to Adrian's point, if they don't release good movies, then we'll just do deep dives into old movies.
Hey, there you go.
We'll do a Dark Knight deep dive at some point.
There you go.
You probably won't even need to rewatch it then.
Oh, I need to rewatch it, dude. I've consumed just so much between, you know, paper, animation.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into some of the other stuff that's on.
I know.
You know,
absolutely.
You know, anime, cosplay. There's still a lot of content.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we'll be around for a bit.
Yes.
And you know, doing deep dives into other types of things other than movies and anime.
Absolutely. And hopefully you guys will be right here with us. So if you like what you watched, if you like what you heard today, hit the subscribe button so you can stay in tune with when we're dropping new videos. We drop Only Comics every Monday evening, 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, and then a bunch of other content throughout the week. So drop some note in the comments. Let us know. Do you agree with us? It was Batman a 9.2 for you? Was it a 7, or was it lower, higher? What do you think? We'll be back next week. We're going to have a special guest next week. My man Ed's going to be in town. So Ed was on one of our Secret Invasion, you know, that good old show. So we'll have an action-packed show. We're going to, I don't know what it is yet, Adrian, but we are going to have a new segment next week since King of the Comics is gone. All right. So we'll have something fun there. And we thank you guys for taking this ride through the multiverse with us today. And we'll be back at you next week on Only Comics. I'm Mike. This is Adrian. We'll see you next week.